The David B. Fall College of Sport and Human Dynamics presents Changing Sports, Changing Lives. The power of adaptive sports to transform and enrich the lives of persons with disabilities. Tatiana McFadden has achieved what no human being, standing or seated, has ever done before. She won the London, Boston, Chicago, and New York marathons, all in the same year, 2013. It's even more remarkable when you realize she was born with spina bifida in St. Petersburg, Russia. Her mother left Tatiana to be raised in an orphanage.
I was very sick and anemic growing up in Russia. I had spina bifida. It was a miracle that I got surgery, 21 days after I was born, and it just happened to be an American doctor that was there at that time. Just a miracle chance. So I don't think I would be living to 24 years old. I don't think I would be a full-time student. I don't think I would be an athlete. I wouldn't have a family, a loving family.
I used to work for the White House, and when President Bush and Gorbachev opened up the countries, I was designated to go over and help distribute humanitarian aid. I had no intention of adopting a child, let alone a 6-year-old, let alone a child with a disability. But there I was in an orphanage distributing aid, and this little girl, bright eyes, whose legs were all atrophied behind her back and had to ambulate by either scooting on the floor or actually I saw her turn upside down on her hands and walk like a clown. Just the cutest thing. And she came and sat on my lap, and I would talk to her in English, she'd answer back in Russian, she wanted to see my camera, so we chit-chatted. Just absolutely adorable little girl.
I walked around my hands everywhere in the orphanage. Some people say, that's where I get most of my strength, building it early. But it was my way to get around. I mean, I didn't have a wheelchair, and it was my transportation everywhere. It was walking on my hands.
I went back to my room that night, and it was very odd because of the thousands of children I was seeing, I couldn't get Tatiana out of my mind. So I went back the next day and gave her some extra special treats, and we played together. And unbeknownst to me, what she told the director was, she goes, "That's my mom." So anyway, I went back and brought Tatiana home, adopted her. Not quite sure what I was going to do with a 6-year-old who was really sick.
So growing up, my mom got me involved with a para sports club called the Bennett Blazers, and it was really essential for my health to be part of a sports program. It wasn't to build myself to be an elite athlete. It was just to get me healthy, to get me strong, to build up my bones and some muscle. I mean, I was really, really sick. And so through this program, I tried several different sports. I tried swimming, ice hockey, downhill skiing, fencing, and then finally I tried wheelchair racing, and it was just a perfect fit. I just loved it. I knew immediately this was going to be my sport.
Tatiana McFadden is one of 54 million Americans who have disabilities. She is so serious about her training that her coach and teammates at the University of Illinois call her the Beast. Tatiana was just out of middle school when she raced in her first Paralympic Games, Athens in 2004. She won silver in the 200 meters, bronze in the 100. In the 2 Paralympic Games since, she has won 8 more medals, including 3 golds in London. And in 2013, Tatiana McFadden won an unprecedented 6 gold medals at the International Paralympic World Championships in Lyon, France. She won every race from the 100 to 5,000 meters.
Her talent is both genetic and it's been through a lot of training, hours and hours of training and taking advantage of some gifts that are very, very inherent. You combine that with her competitiveness and the fact that any starting line she's on, she's going to try to win. And she's very singular in her focus on getting to the finish line first.
The bar is set so high on all the things that are possible, and she shows that. There's no excuses when you're talking to Tatiana because she does everything and she does it all so well.
Tatiana is a picture of strength and athleticism and joy in working hard, and she is allowing these young men, young boys and girls, men and women, I would say people returning with injuries from Iraq and Afghanistan. She is giving them hope and allowing them to see that they can dream and set these goals for themselves. She can't walk, but she flies.
Every morning I get up and I think it's going to be a wonderful day, and I mean, thank God that I'm here, and think about the wonderful family that I have and the wonderful friends that I have, and think about like what's the most important to me, and really try to pursue that in the day.
Tatiana returned to Russia for the Sochi Winter Paralympics to compete in cross-country skiing for the first time. She won silver in the 1 kilometer sprint. There, she was reunited with her birth mother, Nina Polikova, who said, "I am very proud. It's amazing." Tatiana McFadden gives credit for much of her success to her coach and her training at the University of Illinois. It's where, following World War II, Dr. Tim Nugent introduced several wheelchair sports, including basketball, baseball, football, and bowling. They even had a cheerleading squad.
I knew what sports meant to me during the Depression years, and the part they played in my life to give me some of the confidence and social experiences that led me to bigger things. And I knew it had to play the same role in the life of these veterans with disabilities coming back into a nothingness. Facilities weren't accessible, nothing was ready for them. And I knew that they needed this to keep their spirits up. And it conveyed to these people that those people with disabilities had the same interests, the same aspirations, the same attitudes that the rest of the world had. You can't do that speaking to them verbally. You've got to give them evidence of it.
In 1948, the first wheelchair basketball game Dr. Nugent ever saw, he was the coach. They called the team the Giz Kids.
It was not that much different than basketball. The only difference was their means of getting about. And we didn't change any of the rules in basketball except the defining of the dribble. So it wasn't that difficult a transition, and the fellows themselves contributed a lot to the growth of the activities.
At the same time, in England, Dr. Ludwig Gutmann was also adapting sports to help World War II veterans with spinal injuries grow stronger and rebuild their lives. Dr. Gutmann, who had fled Germany before the war, started an archery competition at his Stoke Mandeville clinic in 1948. As it grew to include more sports and more countries, the Stoke Mandeville Games would become the International Paralympics.
He had a tremendous impact, particularly in Europe. And of course, one of the reasons he had the impact was he's a medical doctor. And he stood out among the medical profession by promoting this when other doctors were opposing it. So he had a tremendous impact there. And of course, the American influence brought changes to the sports scene that they had not accepted yet. They had a basket on a pole, and they shot from around it. And they had other limitations. He didn't want the basketball players to do a wheelie. And he and I went round and round about that when I was in England. And I said, "Where's your sense of balance?" And he said, Oh yeah, okay, it's not down here.
Dr. Gutmann actually, to use a term, institutionalized and actually gave essentially permission to start dreaming and thinking of active sport, but also potentially elite sport for individuals with disabilities. Much like Dr. Nugent in 1948 in the University of Illinois, simultaneously almost, it seems, there was a parallel track.
In the late 1940s, wheelchair basketball was introduced to many American communities by a traveling team of veterans from the Birmingham VA Hospital in Van Nuys, California, the Flying Wheels. Spectators marveled at what men in wheelchairs could do.
I don't think you could measure just exactly what they did. It's one of those intangible things that help change attitudes, brought about certain modes of acceptance and understanding. And then we enlarged upon that.
The pioneering work by Dr. Tim Nugent gave birth to the National Wheelchair Basketball Association. Its membership has grown to more than 2,300 men and women in the United States. The University of Illinois is now one of 9 men's teams playing intercollegiate wheelchair basketball. The women's team, founded in 1970, is one of 5 that play women's collegiate wheelchair basketball.
When you first hear the name wheelchair basketball, you think like, oh, like it might be really like gentle or whatever, but it's not. And now I think obviously there's rules and fouls that you can't just go running into people, but it is a very aggressive sport.
So with the ball, there is a traveling rule. You can take 2 touches or 2 pushes of your wheel, but then you have to pass, dribble, or shoot.
Core is a big thing, so it's how functional you are from the core up, so from your thighs up to your stomach. Lots of people, depending on your classification system, is how strong your core is. So you have to keep everything stiff, I suppose, as opposed to stand-up basketball where you're going down and then releasing with your legs, and your arms are basically just doing the fine movements. Wheelchair basketball, it's literally comes 100% from your shoulders and arms. I can't use my legs to, lift my chest up, so, shooting a 3 feels like it's twice the distance in a chair than it is standing up.
To ensure fair competition and equal opportunity for players with varying abilities, teams at every level use a classification system that was established by national and international governing bodies.
It's 14 points out of the floor, and the classifications will go from a 4 to a 1. 1 being the highest disability with the least amount of movements, and a 4 being with the most amount of movement. I like it because it's allowing those that have very high disabilities that may affect them quite a bit to be very impactful players in the game. And if you have a really good Class 1, they're going to be a really strong player for your team.
The Illinois club teams are not yet part of the NCAA, which has been studying the future inclusion of wheelchair sports. Illinois offers scholarships, and they recruit wheelchair athletes from high schools to play basketball and run track. Only a few hundred American high schools now compete in adapted sports. Most schools don't have enough wheelchair athletes to field a team, so many teams are made up of athletes from several schools in a region.
It's amazing to see and know the athletes that are involved here and the backgrounds and the stories that they have of the injury they've incurred and what they've gone through in order to get to where they are. You always see in these sports programs, though, they have a team, but they've got that one guy that's got the great story. Well, I've got a team that everybody's got a great story.
Wheelchair athletes from across the USA and 27 other nations have worn Fighting Illini jerseys.
You never really think about people in wheelchairs doing like fast sports. It's not something that comes to mind, but I saw it and people are crashing into each other, falling out, and nobody cared. They just get back up again.
When I lost my leg, that was a door closed for stand-up basketball and some other sports and other things I was interested in, and then it opened up going to school in the States. It opened up my wheelchair basketball. I'm on the national team for the Canadians. So all these doors opened out of one closing.
Gail Gang is an All-American.
My whole entire family played NCAA sports, and so I think that when I was growing up, I always had this nervous feeling that I wouldn't be just like the rest of my family. I wouldn't be able to play collegiate athletics, and being able to has really brought me closer to them, and so they see how much work I put in, and we get to compare our successes and our failures. So it's really nice to, be a family with that. I think this is a good day. Just a lot of pressure on your hands. You get a lot of calluses though, so once your calluses build up, don't really get any blisters anymore, which is nice.
The Illinois teams are proving every day that wheelchair sports can empower young people who have disabilities.
We have so many decisions that can be taken away from us, and so many avenues in our life that could be changed if we don't take control of them and if we don't make the choices and decisions to do things the way that we want to do them. I think basketball is a great tool for that.
I just know that I can face every obstacle because if I can compete in wheelchair basketball and travel and do all those things, it's helped me become the person that I am today. And I know I can do anything if I set my mind to it.
they're going to go out, they're going to feel that sense of confidence, they're going to feel that development of physical development in terms of their strength and fitness and quality of life issues. I think they're going to find the camaraderie that they have when they participate in a team experience, a sense of pride.
Veterans returning home with disabilities were the first people served by adaptive sports programs. In the decades since World War II, the wars have changed, but the challenges faced by wounded warriors are the same.
I had always defined myself by my physical prowess. You know, so I was a college football player, and then I was a Green Beret, so they were always paid to be the strongest, to be the fastest, and you know, something that would define me and who I was instantly seemingly taken away from me, but it was a great opportunity for me to also redefine myself and reinvent myself.
I look at some of our wounded warriors who go out, you know, who may be an amputee from an IED in Iraq or Afghanistan. They're much better skiers than many of us. You know, they didn't let this get them down, and I think sports allows them to integrate back in society, to going out and working and showing what it means to really be someone who's very proud of their service, but also showing them that they are athletes before, they're athletes during, and they're athletes after the incident. And they're still very much part of our military and part of our society.
Staff Sergeant Kevin Fleich was serving in Afghanistan in September of 2011 when he was shot in the abdomen. He suffered severe nerve damage in his left leg and thought he'd never be able to participate in sports again.
A couple of years ago, when I was cleaning out some of my stuff, I gave my skis away because I never thought that I'd be able to go skiing again.
2.5 years and 6 operations later, Kevin Fleich arrived at Jiminy Peak in Massachusetts with fellow wounded soldiers. They're learning to ski again, thanks to Stride, which was founded in 1985. It is one of nearly 200 Paralympic sport clubs in the U.S. that promote sports and physical activity for people with disabilities, regardless of their age. Stride offers 16 different adaptive sports programs in the northeastern U.S.
Stride offers sport programs focusing more on individual lifetime sport. Therefore, the warrior and the family can learn a sport such as archery or swimming or skiing and snowboarding, which is what we're offering this weekend. And it's something they can do as a family or alone or with friends whenever they want to. The changes are physical, mental, depression goes away, purpose in life comes about, and you actually can witness healing.
Kevin Fleich's first day back on the mountain was a revelation for the former Green Beret.
Blew away all my expectations. I never thought I'd be able to do that again, so to be able to go out and do that is incredible. Something worked for thousands of hours of physical therapy, just all paid off in a short hour there to be able to go and do that.
The war that ravaged Bosnia in the early 1990s had hundreds of thousands of casualties. One was Herman Garrick.
I was 4 years old and I was running away with my parents from our village, which was under attack. And we were running towards a safe house and a grenade exploded above mine and my mother's head. So I suffered a spinal cord injury due to an ambulance which was taking me after the whole grenade explosion happened to the hospital, and ended up tipping over into a lake, which severed my spine on the same day.
Herman's family came to America and settled in central New York. The adapted sports programs offered by the Citron Medical Rehabilitation Center in New Hartford, New York, had become the center of his life.
When I came to the States and I started going through the physical therapy and activities here, I was fairly depressed. You know, I haven't had much to do, not much social interaction. You know, I had a little bit of friends going on in middle school and high school and that type of stuff. But when I first started with adaptive sports, I mean, you know, it turned me around. It kind of did a 180 on me, and you know, it helped with my depression as it was back then. Because you know, I was fairly depressed, just kind of staying at home and playing video games and not going out much, and you know, doing many physical activities as I wanted to. So it changed, you know, a lot.
I love the fact that you have individuals of all abilities participating in sports. Some individuals maybe have a very noticeable physical impairment. Maybe it's an amputation, maybe it's the way that they walk, a gait impairment. Others maybe have something that's maybe more invisible, but certainly there might be a need to adapt. And the fact that we can all come together and participate in sport is truly what sport is all about. It's socialization, it's exercise, it's being the best you can be. And inclusion certainly is a priority for us here at Citron and in general for the whole Paralympic movement.
The Citron Stars are also an official Paralympic sport club. Their weekly air rifle practice is totally inclusive. You don't have to be in a wheelchair to sit and take aim at a target. Adapted sports have transformed Herman Garrick into an accomplished multi-sport athlete. In 2014, he won his division of the Miami Marathon. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibits exclusion of persons with disabilities from any activity that receives federal funds. Discrimination against individuals with disabilities was outlawed in 1990 by the Americans with Disabilities Act.
The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990 by a bipartisan Congress, and in many ways it was the Emancipation Proclamation for people with disabilities. At the hearings of the Americans with Disabilities Act, there were stories after stories about stigma and bias facing individuals with disabilities. There was a famous story where a young person with Down syndrome was at the zoo standing by the monkey cage, and the caregiver came over and asked the person with disabilities to move away for fear that that person would scare the monkeys. And so it gives you a kind of sense of the type of stigma people faced with disabilities. Mostly before that they were out of sight, out of mind, but with the growth of the civil rights movement, people with disabilities came to see their movement as a civil rights movement as well. And the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990 was the culmination of that movement.
Discrimination is discrimination. Marginalization is marginalization. If any one of us is marginalized, we're all marginalized. And why is it important? Is because we're human. It's a human right. Article 30.5, UN Convention on Human Rights for Persons with Disabilities, is about this. That specific article refers to sport, it refers to cultural activity. You're basically saying, if I don't have full rights, I'm not fully human. Does that sound familiar? Why is it important? Because we're all part of the human race.
Despite the federal laws that were in place in 2006, Tatiana McFadden had to sue her school district in Howard County, Maryland, to compete on her high school track team. The suit wasn't for money or damages, just opportunity.
There was only a few people that they really didn't understand what was going on, and they made the most uproar. You know, they were just being really negative and saying there's sports clubs for like you guys, like you could just be part of them, like I understand why you're trying to run in high school sports, and everyone wants to be included in high school, and why shouldn't we? I'm just like any other person except for I sit down. I mean, I move really quickly, I'm really strong, stronger than most high school athletes, actually.
Couldn't imagine the things that people were saying. I mean, just get off the track. You don't belong. Get away. So anyway, we filed suit. And Tatiana went around to now remember, she's 15 years old. She's a little girl. And she went around to the elected officials and said, how would you like it if they wouldn't let your son or daughter play? She goes, all I want to do is run. And I think the papers were calling her the Rosa Parks of disabilities.
The McFaddens won their suit in U.S. District Court and decided that its findings needed to become law to ensure the inclusion of future young athletes on their high school teams. Their work led to the passage by the Maryland legislature of the Fitness and Athletic Equity for Students with Disabilities Law in 2008.
But looking at it back now, I mean, it was worth every single teardrop and every single, boo, and every single, we don't want you there and not included. I mean, it was all worth it looking at it now. Not at the time, being 15 years old, but now it's definitely worth it.
Adapted sports programs were first designed primarily for men because most wounded veterans were men. Programs for women followed, but often decades later.
Gender equity is a tricky issue. I think that again, we're moving in the right direction, but there are still challenges when it comes to marketing and opportunities for women versus men.
We need to get more women out there. We need to give more girls and women opportunities to play sports. Some of the sports like wheelchair rugby, there just aren't women's teams right now. And so what we need to do is start at the ground level, offer Paralympic units in elementary school, in middle school, show the kids all the different ways to play sports. And that way the awareness and the ease of just seamless transfer of being participants in that sport would be much greater.
The number of different sports that have been adapted for persons with disabilities has grown dramatically in the past few decades, creating more opportunities for more people. Sled hockey was created in Sweden in 1940, but it was almost 50 years before the game arrived in the U.S.
The sled, it's technically two skates, but they're on a metal runner that was attached to a frame, which is aluminum, that you sit in a bucket to support yourself. And the sticks, you can use stand-up sticks or sled hockey sticks. And you can buy a blade put on them that's used for sled hockey. And you pretty much drill 2 holes in the end of them and put picks on them. And I use a set of stand-up sticks with blades attached to them.
Moving from the floor to the ice is transformative.
It's the freedom to move, the freedom of being equalized with everybody else in those sleds. You're all equalized, and you can move much faster, much easier, much more agile. I mean, you saw them do the turns and everything else. That is so, it's liberating to their spirits.
It doesn't feel like we're disabled at all. I mean, everyone's out there flying around, and you know, it really makes you forget that you have any disability or have any handicap at all. I don't think any of my friends even notice that I have a prosthetic leg anymore, whether it's playing lacrosse, basketball, just messing around, playing any regular able-bodied sports.
A lot of the sports I've played at the Paralympic level were individual sports, so it's fun to be part of a team, and the physical contact's really pretty special, because I was a rugby player before I got hurt. I didn't get hurt playing rugby, but I was a rugby player, and it's really pretty physical game and can be physical, so I really like that. I haven't actually hit anybody in like 20-some years, so it's kind of nice.
Bob, Colin, and Cody all play for a team organized by Move Along Incorporated. The group was founded by Greg Callan, who lost the use of his legs after a serious fall in 2005.
First, I went through a depressive phase where I really wasn't thinking much about how my integration was going to reoccur. I just knew that someday it was going to need to be there. In terms of when I started thinking more about athletics, probably about 9 months after my injury, I went to an intense rehab out in Detroit. And as soon as I went into the gym, I was removed from my chair and I had to crawl or get to station without the adaptive equipment that was going to be part of my life forever. And that really made me start thinking about how people just needed to use wellness after their injury as a platform.
Sled hockey is played in a regulation rink. But if the benches aren't easily accessible or don't have glass doors, the players waiting for a line change can park themselves along the boards. The Buffalo Sabres Warriors sled hockey team is made up entirely of veterans.
Recreational therapy is a huge part of VA recovery. Walter Reed Hospital and San Antonio Veterans Hospital have sled hockey teams. And these kids that have lost legs, some of them are double amputees, it gives them an opportunity to start to get their life back. Many of them played hockey when they were kids, and now their thoughts of ever getting out on the ice again are gone. This gives them that ability.
It's almost like when I was back in Nam, and you know, the brotherhood, you know, and we each got each other's back, and we go out there on a mission.
USA Hockey has less than 1,000 registered sled hockey players in the U.S., but it says the sport is growing fast. Power Soccer is the first competitive team sport developed for power wheelchair users. It started in France in the 1970s and first came to the U.S. in 1988. a frame is added to the front of each chair, making moves like this possible.
The changes of power soccer in the past 10 years have been astronomical. I started playing in an everyday chair like I'm sitting in now, and the rules stated that I couldn't drive backwards. There was no speed limit on how fast you could go forward, so you had people flying around going 10, 12, 15 miles an hour, whoever could soup up their chair fastest. As the sport grew, the rules changed. Basically, passing started to become a lot more prevalent, and it became an exciting sport.
Peyton Sefik first saw power soccer played when he was 11.
At that time, he'd been in a power chair since he's 2, and he was very adept at moving, and he's got all the attributes of an athlete: great vision, anticipation. So he got out on the floor and he dominated immediately. He was like the man.
Before I played power soccer, I was a lot more timid. I was not as willing to jump into different situations. But now that I've been playing for a while and I've kind of gained a lot of confidence in my life, I think it helps me just get out there and do stuff.
Peyton Sefik is the captain of his CNY United team, which got its first support from Champions for Life in Auburn, New York. They rely on donations to equip team members with powered chairs. Peyton is project coordinator for the Fitness Inclusion Network at Syracuse University's Burton Blatt Institute. As an undergrad at Le Moyne College, he was on the U.S. national team that won the Power Soccer World Cup in Paris in 2011.
It's exhilaration. I mean, I'm very excited when I get out there to play. My heart rate, instantly I can feel it just start palpitating, and my blood pressure gets jacked up, so I absolutely love it. It's kind of become an addiction almost.
Power soccer is not yet a Paralympic sport, but 23 other sports are contested at the International Summer Paralympics. That has grown from just 8 sports that were part of the first Paralympics in Rome in 1960. There are 6 Winter Paralympic sports, including curling. Jimmy Joseph and Mark Taylor train at the Utica Curling Club. Between the two of them, they have 7 World Championship appearances and 1 leg.
It feels fantastic, year in and year out, to represent your country. I mean, I get goosebumps, talking about it, and I'm very proud to do that, and I plan on doing that, like I said, another 30 years, till my arm falls off maybe, but it's a great honor to do that, so this will be my 3rd time going to the White House, so I met President Bush in 2006, Obama in 2010, and I'll go back out in 2014, but like I said, it's just a thrill to, put on the USA and go out there and represent your country.
There aren't any sweepers in adaptive curling, but you do need a teammate to make sure your chair doesn't slip when you throw the stone.
Without sports, I can't imagine what I would be doing. I've thrived on it since my disability, and I started out back in year 2000. I don't believe anyone's really truly disabled. I think they just haven't figured their way out in life. There's always a way around, and with all the adaptive sports, and with all the new inventions out there, people can walk with no legs. There's nothing you can't do. There really isn't. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. You're only disabled up here if you think you are. And that's the only thing keeping you back. There's nothing else.
Raymond Martin is training 6 days a week for the Summer Paralympic Games in Rio de Janeiro in 2016. Raymond went 4 for 4 at the London Games in 2012, winning gold in every race he entered. He was the Male Paralympian of the Year in 2012 and 2013.
Anything is possible, and I am a living testament to that, because 4 years ago in 2010, I was losing all of my races, and I was just incredibly frustrated and annoyed, and I almost wanted to give up, but I had overheard somebody talking about me, actually, and they had said, "Oh, he has no Paralympic potential." And I still remember that to this day, because it pushes me every day. And so I took that, I internalized it, and I put the work in. I started training 6 or 7 days a week and multiple sessions a day, and I really wanted to prove that person wrong. And 2 years after that happened, it turns out that the person who said that didn't make the games, and I did. And I didn't just want to prove them wrong. I wanted to prove it to myself that I can do it. And that's really the heart of the matter, is that anything's possible.
I have a wide range of athletes, those who are congenital, have been in a racing chair, or in adapted sports since they were 5 or 6 years old, and I have others who were injured when they were freshmen in college or in high school and have made a shift from able-bodied sport into adapted sport. What makes a difference is the person, and if they have those skills and ability to understand the training necessary to be at a high level, that's the secret ingredient for success. There is nothing better than sport to address many of the stigmas associated with a physical disability, right? Because sport is about empowerment and enabling from a physical point of view.
Raymond left his home in New Jersey to attend the University of Illinois, where he wants to major in statistics.
And now take the derivative of both sides. So what I'm going to do is take...
He drives his own van, lives in his own single apartment, and loves being independent.
I really just like the quiet and coming home from class or coming home from training and just knowing that nobody's making noise on the couch or something. I could just come sit at my coffee table and study, or just wind down. It's a great thing.
Ray joined the team 2 years ago now, I think, and we had never had a quad athlete. I've never had, since I've been here, I've never had a quad athlete, and so I was nervous at first to see how Ray would fit into this dynamic of all these stronger guys who have more capabilities than Ray. But Ray just put himself, he fits right in. He has an incredible work ethic, and every day he's out there pushing as hard as he can.
Raymond Martin defines himself as a gold medal winning athlete, not as a quadriplegic.
The Paralympic movement has been extremely important in my life. I've spent most of my years thinking about it. I first realized I wanted to go to the Paralympic Games in 2008, right before the Beijing Games, and I was only 14 back then, so I was really young, so I wasn't ready, but it gave me something to look forward to, and I think that's really important, especially for people with disabilities who aren't in sport. It's good to know that it's out there, even if you don't want to go to the Paralympic Games. Just to be active, I think, is extremely important, and the Paralympic movement supports that.
For elite athletes with physical disabilities, the Paralympics is the ultimate goal. For people with intellectual disabilities, the Special Olympics has adapted sports like floor hockey. It's played on a 40 by 80 foot rink, no ice, and the puck is a solid felt ring.
The oath that the athletes have to swear, let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. That means a lot to me, and I came up with a expression that I usually like using when it comes to competitions that is kind of similar to that. If anyone asks you why you compete in what you're doing, you tell them you compete because you enjoy it. You play hard, you play tough, you play safe, you play fair. You make sure your opponents know who you are and that you're going to stand by your people.
Keeps me in shape, keeps me in line, get to hang out with all my friends.
I think they're really cool, and I think they're really nice people, and I think they're fun to hang out with. Sometimes they can be a little goofballs, but I like that anyways.
They're athlete first. They are driven. Let me tell you, you walk around, you see them concentrating, they are bragging about how much they have practiced and trained. They're athletes first, and that comes all the way down from the coaching that they're getting, from their families working with them. They're, athlete first. They want to come and compete and make sure that they're, doing their absolute best, and they understand and have an awareness of, I might not be as good as somebody else in something else, but man, I can play floor hockey and I can get this done, and I'm a gold medal winner because of it.
I've looked at some data for individuals from Special Olympics. We know they have a higher obesity rate than the American general population. So we know that there's importance for getting them to be out, be active, just like anyone else. It's just so important to be engaged.
I see more of an integrated model with how Paralympics and Special Olympics they're just
they're part of the same movement. It's just they take on different parts for different populations.
Special Olympics arose from a series of summer camps set up for children with intellectual disabilities by Eunice Kennedy Shriver in the early 1960s. The first international summer games were held at Soldier Field in Chicago in 1968. The first winter Special Olympics at Steamboat Springs, Colorado in 1977. Mrs. Shriver and the Kennedy family worked together to generate early support and publicity for the Special Olympics. Media coverage of adapted sports as sport is vital for the growth of existing programs and the creation of new opportunities.
The importance of the media presently is in its mainstreaming of disability. If you look at commercials now, you see Olympians who use wheelchairs or Olympians who are vets who have one less leg. And one of the greatest things that we can do to reduce disability discrimination is, of course, exposure to disability.
One of the most critical roles is the messaging of the story. It loses significance if it's a story where the emphasis is on, isn't that great, they can be out there. That message of ability is what needs to be out there, and we're moving in the right direction, and there are people who get it, who when they tell their stories, whether it's in the newspaper or electronically, it's a powerful story about an athlete.
The impact will be that more athletes will get involved. They'll see it on TV, their family will see it on TV, they will be encouraged to participate and be involved.
NBC committed to 50 hours of television coverage from the Winter Paralympics in Sochi, Russia, and 66 hours from the Summer Games in Rio de Janeiro in 2016.
So often people are just kind of like, oh, you have a disability, you can't do anything. But when people see someone with a disability out there cycling, out there skiing, whether it's on a mono ski or whether it's on outriggers, then that's like, hey, maybe my cousin with a disability could do that. Maybe they can go skiing with me.
The Empower Sports and Recreation website was launched in 2013 to increase exposure for adapted sports stories and educate families about what athletes with disabilities can do and what programs exist to help. It is curated by grad students like Kelsey Lefevre.
Kind of looks a little bit like a Twitter feed where you've kind of just got a whole feed of articles and stories written by various journalists, published on different websites that are kind of all being pulled into one.
Empower can be a great vehicle to get out, to the sport business journals, to the Sports Illustrated, the ESPNs, all the different more mainstream networks, NBCs, all these things that are out there that just are covering sports all the time, and they just may not ever get something landing on their email box that's about adaptive sports.
Increasing awareness can help get more children into adapted physical education programs at an early age.
Well, children with disabilities are children first, and so it's important for them to get all the opportunities that their peers experience and have all the opportunities when they grow up. The importance of it is that in order for them to have choices when they're older, they have to have the same choices when they're younger.
The fact that they're engaged in quality physical education, they learn about what's important about being physically active, just like any other child. It's so important that they get that early on, and they set that precedent for themselves. They learn how to adapt and modify for themselves and to self-regulate maybe their behavior, or learn how to modify or adapt a piece of equipment so that they could engage and play with everybody else.
Adaptive sports equipment can be expensive, but Dr. Davis says the most important thing school districts can do is invest in adapted physical education training for their existing teachers.
Without a nationally certified adaptive PE teacher, without that person in a school district, the child with a disability has no voice when it comes to physical activity or physical education. So that person who's knowledgeable and trained has the wherewithal to understand not only the unique attributes of the learner, the person with a disability, but also understands physical activity, physical education, and how to bring those two together.
In January of 2013, the U.S. Office for Civil Rights sent a Dear Colleague letter to every school in the United States, reminding them that equal rights to education for all include equal access to physical education.
The intent of the letter was to make sure that children with disabilities have opportunities to be on their after-school sports teams. And if they don't make that team, then that school should give them equal access to similar sport. Or the school district should start a team and give them equal opportunity.
You have schools blocking out huge blocks of time after school. Say, okay, these fields are only for our varsity sports teams or junior varsity sports teams. These facilities, basketball facilities, are only for our varsity and junior varsity teams after school. How about everyone else in the community? Well, how about kids with disabilities? Well, you didn't even give the kids with disabilities a chance to try out. So they have no access to those facilities.
The Dear Colleague letter from the state and from the federal government actually underscored what we already do in our district. We have a robust adaptive PE program, and we have students that are incorporated into all aspects of our physical education program. We have students swimming, we have students rowing, we have students doing a lot of activities that all able-bodied students can do.
The parents of children with disabilities or impairments are often hesitant to engage them in physical activity for fear they might hurt their child. Dr. Luis Columna at Syracuse University has developed a program that teaches parents how to play with their special needs children.
This program is unique. Most programs focus on the children. This program is focusing on the families. We are giving them the tools. We are not only serving the parents, we are serving the child with a disability. Also, siblings are coming to the program. This gave me an idea, so now the next program I'm going to do is going to teach the siblings how to play with the child with a disability. That's my next step. And then provide this to other type of disabilities. Bottom line, we need to educate the family.
They've given me tools. Here's the handouts, here's what you can do, here's a video on how to do it, you've practiced it, so I'm excited to go home and play.
I've had parents that say that they never got to play with their child because they didn't know what to do. I mean, to just play and have fun with their child is a novelty for some parents. The parents can advocate for the child. The parents can teach the children how they can learn. So by the parents learning how to teach them all the appropriate skills, it not only gives them that foundation of fundamental skills that they can use in any sport, but it also gives the parents the tools to teach the school if they're missing that.
Advances in technology, some borrowed from other sports, are creating more adaptive sport and recreation opportunities for young and old.
The advancement in the technology of adding equipment from other sports and putting them into ours is a big one. I think an example was the click straps that we have in our chairs. We used to just have Velcro straps like you would normally do it, or even a seatbelt that would be from a car. Now we're adding in click straps that are actually the bindings off of snowboards. We took those bindings off and put them in our chairs. So if you bind your hips, your legs, and your feet into the chair, now the chair is a part of your body just much like a snowboard is to your shoes. So we can turn our hips and your chair will move without touching your wheels.
Racing chairs from 20 to 25 years ago bear little resemblance to the chairs used today.
Every single athlete designs their chair just a little bit different to account for their disability, what muscles that they can use, what muscles they can't use, and then how they can generate the most power into the wheel based on the muscle groups that they have access to. We're going from steel frames, boxy steel frames for all your wheelchairs, to now basketball chairs all being made out of lightweight titanium and even some magnesium in some cases, and then racing chairs now really getting into the whole carbon fiber movement, and you'll have racing chairs that are a combination of carbon fiber and aluminum alloys.
It's really such an amazing time to be part of the Paralympic movement right now. We're seeing changes in the different materials that are being used in the different sports equipment. We're also seeing the athletic ability, I think, really elevate. There are more opportunities for our athletes to train, more knowledge in the sport, more biomechanics and ergonomics that are going into training and analysis for our athletes. We're seeing that also tie over to everyday uses for that for the general population as well.
Adding gears to the wheelchairs is not allowed in competitions, but it would make recreation and just getting around easier for the elderly and those with reduced upper body strength.
The future holds a lot of great things for adaptive technology. The biggest push right now is using lighter weight materials to make certain people can have all the adaptability they need. taking their wheelchair in and out of their car without a problem, being able to push faster, longer distances. Lighter weight is always the way to go. And for us, we really try to provide extra options. With our gearing system, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it so that people can find the right fit for themselves.
The technology that goes into monoskis, including shock absorbers like those on motorcycles, makes it possible for skiers like Brian Kaplan to rocket down the mountain as fast as any skier who stands.
Whether I'm on a bunny hill, whether I'm on a double diamond, moguls, lousy snow, ice, good snow, it's the same. It just feels good. It feels right. I don't know how else to say it. It feels great. The snow doesn't know that on the other side of that ski is a monoski and not a ski boot. So the fundamentals are the same. You have to be balanced. You're utilizing your edge, you're utilizing pressure, you're utilizing the rotary component of the turn. All those things are the same.
Brian broke his back in a mountain biking accident when he was 16. Now he's a mechanical engineer and a volunteer instructor at Greek Peak Adaptive Snow Sports in Cortland, New York, where he learned to ski from Chuck Laws.
When we finally got him skiing, I remember taking him, I don't know what lesson it was or what, take him to the top over here, and then shedding tears saying, Chuck, I can't believe I'm up here skiing. And I'll tell you what, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about.
I think that that's an important part of life, just accepting that there are things that you can't do anymore. But there are so many things that you can. I can ski. Can I do anything? No, I can't. But I think the spirit of it is that if you really want to do something, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. And I think the spirit is there. I think that the desire is there. I think that there is honor in trying. I think there's glory in trying.
Momentum is building for inclusion to get more people with disabilities engaged in sports and recreation, just like anyone else.
Inclusion for me is to the spot where it's not even a thought. It's not even a thought to think that these types of disabilities need to be involved or this type of person needs to be involved. It just happens, and that's where the inclusion needs to be. And I've always seen it where if you have something that's accessible, I don't even want to have it be labeled accessible. It should just be it. It should always have ramps. It should always have power doors. It's not something that we think about. It's just everyone's included.
So for me, I've had this kind of thing where I talk about invisibility as like being excluded or absent, to invisibility being like just part of the fabric, and so part of it is this journey going from invisible as excluded to invisible as included.
Inclusion to me is a human right of participating in the social endeavor. Our humanity is based on our ability to interact with others, whether it's virtually on the web, or whether it's to access courthouses, or whether it's to participate in sports and leisure activities. To exclude somebody from the normal and daily life activities that we all enjoy is to make them less human, in fact, and is to make them ostracized and segregated from the rest of society.
Recreation is recreation. Maybe you're not going to be a Paralympic athlete. Not everybody becomes an Olympian or a Paralympian, we understand that. But having an opportunity to participate in sports is what it's all about.
Inclusion means equal access. Equal access to physical education, to recess, to sport, to after-school sport. And it's not that, oh, we're going to let him play the last point in the last game and we're going to all cheer him all on and he's going to be famous. It's truly being a part of that team from the beginning to the end, during the games, after the games.
Unified sports allow able-bodied athletes and athletes with disabilities to play and compete in the same games. They show how sport can connect people and break down barriers.
When you see an able-bodied individual get in the chair and all of a sudden we're equal to them again in competition, I mean, when you're an athlete, you're competitive by nature. That doesn't change when you go from an able-bodied athlete to an athlete that uses adaptive equipment. And when we can get an able-bodied athlete and a piece of equipment to beat up on, well, you take a lot of pride in that and you love it.
I guess what shocked me the most was the motive and the drive that the people had, because sometimes when people had a disability, they kind of get down, but the people's spirit that they had, it kind of was like an eye-opener to me, like challenges come, and you gotta face them.
They were pretty great. They were able to move around, get screen each other. They were able to do basically everything you could do playing basketball with your legs, just without them. So it was pretty cool to watch them go out there and play like zones and the other defenses and get in offensive sets and kind of run them without using their legs.
You don't realize what you have until you see someone who doesn't have it. And then it kind of wakes you up.
Just recently I had my leg amputated, so now I have this. I've been in a lot of wheelchairs, so when I get to high school I want to play basketball.
10-year-old Jason Robinson's goal is to compete in the Paralympics one day. He loves the competition.
I want to focus on my athletics, and I want to be an athlete for my whole life. So I want to go to the Paralympics when I'm older. That's one of my top goals.
He has that competitive drive. He loves everything to do with sports: hockey, basketball, baseball, soccer. He doesn't care. He just wants to play. It gave him an opportunity to excel, and to prove that it didn't matter if he was in a wheelchair. It didn't matter if he had crutches. He could play a sport just like anybody else could.
There are those who see unified sport as the future, with the Olympics and Paralympics combining one day into the ultimate inclusive sports competition.
It's all Olympic. Some Olympians have disabilities, some perhaps are disabilities in waiting, but we're changing the label on the door. From henceforward, there will be an Olympic Games, winter, Olympic Games summer. It will include athletes with disabilities and athletes who you thought you knew before, who you would define as Olympians. Everyone's an Olympian now that competes in these games, not Olympic and Paralympic, Olympic.
There are athletes who have such amazing ability that much of the world has no idea about because the information isn't necessarily widespread. And as we start to see the information become readily available, as the community in general understands the Paralympic movement and the amazing physical ability of all athletes, I do believe we're going to see more inclusion and just a larger Olympic movement.
It's impossible to overstate the power that changing sports has to change lives.
Life is, it's crazy and fun, and you have to hang on for the ride, and you really have to believe in yourself and what you want for yourself.
I think I very much put my identity more towards who I am as a person, not my lack of ability to walk.
It's not what's missing, it's what's there. It's not about what you're missing, what happened to you, it's about where you want to go and what you can do.
I definitely get looked at as an athlete, which is very exciting to me.
To be able to call myself a defending Paralympic champion and the defending world champion, it means a lot.
My life has completely changed. I have a positive outlook on life, thankfully, to the sports that I participate in and the people I meet, and it's just been an amazing opportunity.